You're listening to Health Innovators, a podcast and video show about the leaders, influencers, and early adopters who are shaping the future of healthcare. I'm your host, Dr. Roxie Mooney. Welcome back to the show, Health Innovators. On today's episode, I'm sitting down with Rob Pupelis, who is the CEO of Spectros Medical Devices. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Hi, Dr. Roxie. Thank you for having me.
It is good to have you here. So let's start off by telling our audience a little bit about your background and why you do what you do.
Yeah, that's it's funny when you get to a certain age. There's always like a long story. So I'll try to make it short for you.
Yep.
I actually was not originally going into medical when I got out of college. My degree's in theater and communications, believe it or not. So my standard line is I like to act like I know what I'm doing. But no, back in 1995, I got really interested in medicine. And so I wanted to find a way to get involved. And I started looking for a sales position, which, believe it or not, I'm sure you have lots of guests that talk about this. It's tough to get in.
Yeah.
It's sort of a catch-22. They want you to have experience, but you can't get experience without experience, right? So, it's just a challenge. But I wormed my way in 1995, and I was so lucky to be working in the field of plastic surgery at that time, and I've never left. So over the years, we've done some different things. We opened a distributorship in 2001, and then we've done some acquisitions and of some different devices, and that's what led to my purchasing of the previous company, Spectros Corporation, which is now Spectros Medical Devices, which is in plastic and reconstructive surgery. So I'm not sure I answered your question so well there, but it's just a long, circuitous way to get there.
Well, that really kind of answers one of the questions that I had was it looked like the company started in 2001, but there were these kind of startup early stage vibes that I got from the company, and I was trying to reconcile the two.
Yes, I was a sales rep as a 1099 fashion for the old Spectros company. And there were this is right up your entrepreneurial alley. There were some limitations in what they were selling. And frankly, the management and the leadership there was not really interested in evolving that product line.
Yeah.
And I knew how good it was. I was a large percentage of the sales. And so I leveraged an asset purchase of that company, and they took it. And so we developed the next generation. We've been innovating. We've quadrupled sales since 2018. We're now international. So we've done all these things, and it's proved to me that I made the right decision.
So is that when you launched the T-Stat product in 2018?
So there was a predicate device around 2008, I think. And and I think I started with them around 2010.
Gotcha.
And so we launched we started developing the T-Stat 2.0 in 2018, which is when we acquired the company. And then we got an FDA approval in 2019 and then launched you got it, January of 2020, a great time to launch a new product.
In itself is an epidemic on this show of hearing these stories of all these innovators that launched in spring of 2020.
Yeah, we're still here. No, so we are lucky. We are lucky though, because we had a customer base that liked the old technology. So it was a pivot for them. It wasn't awful. Yeah. For us, we recovered pretty well, and we've had some really nice growth and some really nice traction since then. So I couldn't be happier.
So when you think about an organization that's starting from scratch, all they have is an idea, and they're forming the business and the team and the product and all of those nuances that go into that, versus someone like yourself that maybe had a little bit of a head start. What do you think some of the advantages and disadvantages that you faced in being able to launch and grow the new phase of the business?
Yeah, I think obviously it's much harder to start from nothing. But I think when you are doing a pivot like we did, there are things there are preconceived notions of previous leadership, previous technologies, you have to sort of convince them all over again that you really are changing something. You really are there to make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I think, is one, it's opportunity, but
Yeah.
it can be a challenge in certain situations. I was in New York earlier this week, and I was presenting to the head of a plastic surgery program up there. And that was their question. Like, I've heard of this technology. Why isn't it everywhere? It sounds great. And so I had to explain, like, well, it was, they had some challenges back in the day, and
Yeah.
under new leadership, new ownership, new innovation, we're here. And so, it's good. It's part of the story, which I think is nice.
Mm-hmm.
So that helps them sort of wrap their head around it.
Yep. So would you say that the product that you've brought to market now is a revolutionary innovation, or is it more of an incremental innovation from what was previously done?
To give kudos to the original engineers, it is revolutionary in that it is a game changer
Mhm.
for microsurgery in
Yep.
patients that are post-cancer, post-traumatic wound, where their lives have just been dramatically altered. This helps them sort of get back to normal once they get past that, cancer recovery or trauma recovery. So in that essence, it's a game changer. And then what we've done are little incremental improvements of that original
Mhm.
technology along the way. So I like to think it's revolutionary in that sense, because
Yeah.
there were limitations, and I think one by one we're putting those limitations aside and giving the surgeon and the patient both exactly what they need for a better recovery.
So what has the funding journey been like for you?
Well, we were fortunate, right? We had incoming revenues. We
Yeah.
used the distribution company revenue to invest.
Yep.
Um, Personal funds, of
Yep.
course,
Mhm.
to invest, which I
Yep.
think every entrepreneur does.
Yep.
And then we also had because of the other company, we had a long relationship with our bank. So we were able to borrow when we needed to.
Mm-hmm.
And so that hasn't been as difficult as it might be for a startup. And
Sure.
also, what that's allowed us to do is closely control ownership. So
Mhm.
we don't have a big investor pool that we have to answer to, which really does help you be much more nimble as a small
Mhm.
company
Yeah.
and do
Yeah.
what needs to be done. And because our entire team my entire team was there sort of before all this, or at least
Right.
partially, maybe not fully in, but their toe was dipped in.
Yeah.
So everybody gets that this is a big deal, and they allow us. Everybody's invested, I guess, is the point, which is huge to have a team that is so well and deeply invested to make sure, and they understand the goals, right? They understand that patient care and improving outcomes, there's nothing more important to us than that. So that is great to have a team that understands that.
So let's just be clear. What is the problem that your solution solves?
Think of it like a transplant surgery. In reconstructive surgery, when we talk about microsurgery, you're talking about the surgeon taking part of the body and moving it elsewhere. One of the most popular, if you will, that's my most common procedures, I would say, is what we call is in breast reconstruction, where they
Mhm.
take part of the belly and create new breast tissue in mastectomy patients, so post-cancer patients that have healed and are ready to move on. So in those surgeries, they actually sever the artery and the vein where they were, and they sew them back in. They reconnect them to different arteries and veins in the chest wall.
Mhm.
So massive change, and anything that gets a clot in either the vein or the artery kills that tissue once it's been moved. So what our device does is it monitors the health of that tissue. It monitors the oxygen saturation, so we know that they're at comfortable levels, healthy levels. And it also measures hemoglobin, which basically what that tells us is that blood is also getting out of the tissue, which, because we're talking about the circulatory system, is just as important, right? We have to get blood flow in for new oxygen, but we also have to get it out so it can recirculate to the heart and get additional oxygen.
So how is that different than what's happening in the marketplace
Well,
currently?
Yeah, there really isn't. Our device is the only one that can do both of those, that can measure inflow and outflow. So that's, I think, where we're a game changer. And
Yeah.
it reads in real time. So it's an instant notification when there's a problem, or if there's a problem, or even a potential problem. An occlusion in a blood vessel is not instant. I mean, yes, there's a clot, but sometimes it's just a slow choking off of the blood supply. So you might see the numbers like slowly dip downward, right? So our device will tell you that this is starting to happen. So in traditional medicine, in a clinical evaluation, these patients would be seen by a nurse. And the way you would observe that clinically is there might be a temperature change. The skin gets colder. There might be a color change. It starts to turn grayish or purple or redder. Before any of that can be visualized, our device is already telling them, hey, something is going on in here. Something is not as it should be. And so it's the opportunity to get there sooner and potentially save the tissue.
Wow. Much needed.
Well, yes. And you think about what some of these patients battle cancer for years, right? So we're sort of like on the end of the journey with them. So what we are so excited about is if we can give them sort of peace of mind, and they see the monitor's there at their bedside. So they can watch right along. They can see that they're healthy and steady, sort of like, a pulse oximeter or the heart rate monitor. You see that little bump, and you're like, yeah, that's good. Those numbers are good. So they're invested in it. And we will get feedback from patients like that was helpful. That did give me peace of mind as I was lying there in my hospital bed. So that's exciting to us.
That mental emotional journey is so critical to their healing and recovery.
Absolutely. Yeah. So if we can do that little bit, help maybe save a few more of these flaps, and then also give the patient peace of mind, that's a home run to me.
Yeah. So, kind of going back to the whole comment about 2020, not the most ideal time to bring a surgical device to market. With surgeries not happening. So tell us a little bit of what was that journey like and how is the rebound, right?
Yeah, so again, we were fortunate. We knew there was a stoppage happening. Hospitals were converting so many of their ORs into COVID wards. They were using the equipment that would be used for surgery to save lives. So that happened, but we're also in Texas, Dr. Roxie. So that didn't last too long here. The surgeons, the government started pushing back and saying, understanding the need to get these patients treated.
Yeah.
So we were in a more fortunate position here. So we were able to sort of jumpstart after 6 or 8 weeks being down. So we were fortunate and we rebounded very quickly.
Gotcha.
We even had other facilities around the country start during COVID, which I thought was remarkable. And we were not even able to go launch them in person.
Right.
So we would be in our office in our homes making like video tutorials.
I see.
Oh my God, they were so awful. It was me, and I was the device is so bright that any light shining on it, it was not visually. It didn't visually. What's funny is it made us realize that this is a valuable tool to training. So now we've redone them professionally. We have a YouTube channel. We use them constantly for training and education. But that came out of COVID. And I'm not sure we would have, thought of that any sooner had that happened. We would have done it the traditional way, which is we have to be in the hospital. We have to train every nurse in person. And now they can train on their own, in their own time, when they don't have, I have 8 patients in 8 rooms, and I'm so stressed out. I don't have time to listen to this rep who's in front of me right now. So I think it's a huge help for us. And so I thank COVID for that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That chaos breeds creativity if
Absolutely.
You lean into it, right? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the growth strategies that you guys have deployed? As we know, access to physicians, it can be challenging. And med device can also be challenging. So, what are some of the growth strategies that have been really successful for you? really effective.
I think you have to get into this, from my perspective, you have to get into the society. So we attend the medical conferences.
Mm-hmm.
We are involved anywhere we can be, frankly. And
Mm-hmm.
so that allows us the opportunity to meet people.
Mm-hmm.
Since we are continuing to innovate, one of the things we're doing now is we're trying to get into the buried flap market. There's a way to use our device in a flap that doesn't have skin, that's just inside the body.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no other way to really monitor that well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of our big goal right now. So working with a couple of key facilities across the country. And so working with people and having relationships is important. And the way to start that process is just, getting out there, getting to know people. So we attend conferences. We do have some of our money is spent in supporting the various societies. Women in microsurgery is one of
Mm-hmm.
the ones. We do some things internationally.
Yeah.
We're really trying to be more patient focused because I think educating patients is important. So we're trying to um, get involved in that aspect a little bit. So we have a patient resource pages coming, because I think
Mm-hmm.
we can also get to a point, not that a patient can demand use of a certain medical device, but awareness is key. Um, and so we want patients. Maybe they can't make a doctor use it, but we want them to be aware it's there for them and it's meant to help them.
Well, it works for pharma.
Right. Right.
uh, that's for sure. Um, so what are some of the challenges that you faced and how you've overcome them? Because we know, it's not just like I build the growth plan, I execute the growth plan, and I watch the money come in.
Yeah, no, Sally, that's not the possible. That's never it seems like that's never been my 20-year history.
Right.
Um, yeah, well, because part of that innovation comes along with reinvesting. So you
Yeah.
can't innovate without reinvesting. So let's see, what are the challenges? I think, I feel really fortunate. So yes, there are challenges. I don't think growth is fast enough.
Yeah.
We'd like to be everywhere sooner. So getting the right personnel to be on your team is a small challenge. So sometimes that's a little trial and error. And the
Sure.
time, I think the process to get approval in the hospital has become incredibly lengthy. And you have, value analysis committees at hospitals who serve a great purpose, right? They want to make sure that one surgeon doesn't demand a product that is, not beneficial or what. So I understand that there's a process in there, but that's really lengthened the approval process for any medical product in a hospital.
Right.
And often the people that sit on those boards have nothing to do with the specialty. So being able to create collateral and help the surgeons, tell the story to those committees, I
Mm-hmm.
think is a challenge that you have to be prepared for. And
Yeah.
you have to have the patience and, of course, the financial stability to wait that out. So
Right.
that's definitely a challenge for small medical companies. But, you just hold it together and you smile along the way.
Right. Right. Uh, so how has this journey, changed you as an entrepreneur? When you think about 1995 and you're, fighting your way into the healthcare industry and kind of who you are today, personally and professionally, how has this entrepreneurial journey shaped you?
Yeah, isn't it funny? We're so dumb when we're 25. I mean, not everybody is, but I was dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it teaches you so much. And I think what's interesting as I get into my mid 50s is I think, that did your parents like mellow out? Do you remember your parents mellowed out when you were growing up? And you're like, gosh, my parents were not that cool when I was, when I was a teenager. And then they get into their 50s and 60s and they like start to be cool and mellow out. I think I'm mellowing out.
Ah.
I think I know, right? It seems like that shouldn't be possible, but it allows you to say, you know what? I don't know everything, which I think when you're young, you feel like I know this is the way it should be.
Yeah.
So you have a little more patience and you have a lot more connections. So you're able to go to your colleagues at other companies or in regulatory or even at these societies, and someone will give you the time because there's a lot more respect that you have when you reach a certain age, and they know you've done a couple of good things for the world.
Yeah.
So that's excellent. So I think I've become a better person out of it, and so I feel good about that. It sounds funny, but it's true. I feel we have a really good message. We have a really good plan, and since the goal is to improve patient outcomes, I feel good about that.
Absolutely. I mean, every health innovator is leaving a legacy in some form or fashion. And in healthcare, it matters what we do. Quality of life, length, health span, lifespan, all of those things really matter. It's not like we're innovating stuff in other industries.
Yeah, and I love being a small company, frankly. So many of these giant companies, I mean, there's some very good ones out there. I don't mean to generalize, but it's harder to work with those companies. There's so many
Right.
restrictions. Innovation takes so much longer because there are so many layers of approval, and often I think some really good things get left behind because of that. So we're fortunate not to have that blockade in the
So,
way.
what's some of your
Excuse me.
plans going forward? I know that you're looking to expand globally. Do you have any specific markets that you are pursuing that
Absolutely.
are more
We
attractive?
yeah, well, so we did get our CE mark in 2021. So
Mhm.
we started marketing in 2022 to Europe.
Yeah.
And so we've already got distributors in 4 different countries there. We're starting in Australia. I think
Mhm.
Israel is next, so I can't wait to get over there and make a difference there, where I know they're going through tremendous trauma now. So
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah, Europe is first, which is interesting. That's the whole socialized medicine. So that is new for us. Although we tend to be, it seems like we're able to navigate it okay.
How
Um,
is that different for you? Penetrating the European market, and how
it's
is
all
it different?
socialized.
Right.
So every dollar counts.
Hmm.
And we're an add-on cost
Yeah.
if you look at it. But what's great about it is because of the relationships that we've been able to procure, work through with the surgeons, they become your champion.
Hmm.
So once they see what the device is capable of, they really go to bat hard for you. So we have, oftentimes it just takes one. We have a surgeon we're working with in the Netherlands who I've known for a few years, and she's just the most lovely woman you can imagine. And her goal is she's starting to use it, and she's doing a study on cost savings, because in theory with the technology, patients, instead of going to an ICU, can go to a lower form of care, because the
Hmm.
most important thing is that this flap lives, and if the
Yeah.
device can monitor it 24/7, then they don't need a nurse checking it 4 times an hour. The patient can be in a lower level of care, where patients that need, leaving the bed open for the patient that does have the higher need of care.
Yeah.
So that's exciting to me, and that never would have happened again without that relationship, where we talk for a year or two, and then magically we're ready, and these surgeons jump in with you, feet forward, and really are your champions. So that's important, and that takes a long time to cultivate those relationships. So I'm fortunate to be in a position where I can socialize, and I have a network of surgeons that are always introducing us to new people, and that becomes international too, which is really makes it sort of fun.
Yeah. Yeah. Always, never boring, never a dull day. So as we kind of wrap up here, what advice do you have for fellow health innovators out there? Any lessons learned? Any resources that have made a difference in your journey? Anything that you'd want to share with them?
Yeah, I think reach out to your friends and colleagues. Stay. I think platforms like LinkedIn, if you don't know somebody, I mean, most people do. You don't become an entrepreneur. Most people don't become an entrepreneur, especially in medical, at the age of 22. So there are people, and I think you'd be surprised, or maybe, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. I've had so many people that I worked with over the years that have become a mentor through this process for me. So when I had regulatory needs or when I had manufacturing needs, I could reach out to people and, they give me their time. And sometimes it's at a conference or with a cocktail, and sometimes it's just in the middle of the day, like, hey, can you help me with this challenge? And so they refer you, they help you get through it. But you have to be patient. But I'd also, if you believe in it, stick with it. Don't let go. Don't let someone else take away what you know to be the best course. If you're passionate about it, that story comes through in your work and in your communications. And I think that's huge. So that would be, don't let go of what you know is right.
Yeah, that's so true. And that's so hard to navigate as an entrepreneur of, when do you listen to that feedback and it's really good feedback and you need to pivot, you need to listen and pivot. And when is it like, no, stay the course, you're onto something, keep persisting, don't let go of this, and really being able to just navigate when it's one and the other.
Yes, and you do have to listen to the surgeons. That sort of wasn't who I meant when I said don't listen to them, because their feedback is, for me, is key. Yeah. So all the changes and development, we get tons of ideas from our surgeons on ways to improve or add on to what we already have. So I always listen to them, but it's the other people that are in your, you're like, this isn't going to work. Don't do this. Your friends and family. Don't listen to your friends and family. That's the first lesson. No.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story.
Thanks, Dr. Roxie. This was lovely.
How can folks get a hold of you if they want to reach out to you after the show?
Anytime. So we're on LinkedIn, of course. My name, Rob Pupelis, which I think is posted here on the site. Always go to www.spectros.com. There's a way to contact us, see clinical information. That's certainly a way as well. So, and I'd love to answer any questions that your listeners might have, or surgeons or folks that might want to get involved and help with what we're trying to accomplish here. I'd love to get some more contacts and some more colleagues to work with.
Why not, right? Building that Rolodex for the next 10 years.
Rolodex, look at you. It's funny. Have you ever asked a young person? They're like, "What's that?" They really. We need to start calling our contacts in the iPhones the electronic Rolodex. Yeah.
I'm aging myself, right? Well, thank you so much for joining me today. Appreciate it.
Yes. Have a lovely weekend. Thank you for the time.
And if you haven't already subscribed to the show, please do so. Just click the like button there, and see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. See you on the next episode of Health Innovators.